First of all, before I get into everything, I gotta give a shout out to Precise Presenter for featuring my channel and everything to his subscribers as somebody to look out for, somebody to listen to, and I appreciate the shout out, man. I appreciate all the new people that have subscribed to the channel, and with all that said, I'll get into it. I like the idea of Tim Bradley fighting against Manny Pacquiao for a third time. Incidentally, Precise mentioned it recently too on a video talking about it would be for in the eyes of people who thought Bradley won the first fight, which is what I am, that it would be a true rubber match, and that's pretty much how I see it. I see it as a true rubber match. Even when I was watching the first fight live, I was thinking like, how in the hell is Harold Letterman scoring all these rounds for Pacquiao? Because to me, a lot of it was Bradley doing good work, doing pretty good outboxing of Pacquiao, and the crowd was booing. And the crowd was booing Pacquiao because they were booing the fight because they were going in there expecting Pacquiao to be Pacquiao, expecting Manny to do what he did to David Diaz, expecting him to do what he did to Margarito, expecting him to do what he did to Ricky Hatton. Especially Ricky Hatton, because a lot of people were comparing Bradley to Ricky Hatton really, really directly by virtue of them basing a lot of what they had seen of Bradley, when he fought Kendall Holt, when he fought Devin Alexander, that kind of reckless, come forward, aggressive, ambush, bury your head in the guy's chest style, which is what Hatton specialized in. But Bradley showed off a different aspect of his skill set, being a bit more of a counterpuncher, using Pacquiao's mistakes and patterns against him. And a lot of what Pacquiao was doing, it seemed like he was waiting so long because it's like he wanted to play the counterpuncher because by this time, of course, he had developed a bit more skills and more of a skill set. He was trying to get Bradley in positions that Bradley wouldn't oblige him in. And so he wound up being relegated to working the last 30 seconds or the last minute of every round, trying to steal it, almost Ray Leonard versus Marvin Hagler esque, and doing that. And honestly, to me, he didn't win enough of those rounds, and I was really getting annoyed. I mean, I was at a fight party, and everybody there was wondering why I was so irritated because I mean they were just watching the fight and they were thinking like, oh, it's like these, Pacquiao's not being Pacquiao, and but Bradley's not really making a fight out of it. It's kind of a quote unquote boring fight, and like nothing particularly explosive was happening. And the reason why nothing particularly explosive was happening was because it was pretty much a stalemate. And the core scorecards reflected that it was pretty much a stalemate, albeit with Bradley getting the edge, which is how I saw it. And then, of course, all of a sudden afterwards, there's this big uproar. I think because people were listening a little bit too much to the commentary, as once again, as Precise, very, very well stated, well showed in the well presented in that video, probably his most famous video, A Tale of HBO Nuthuggery, um, years back. And I mean, with regard to the second fight, though, I mean, I thought that was another close fight. I thought Bradley was winning in the early goings. He got injured, and then the thing is, I think Bradley started really going for broke, trying to knock Pacquiao out in the later rounds, partially because he wasn't necessarily dominating Pacquiao and or controlling him the way he was able to in the first fight. Partially because he had hurt himself, and then partially because he knew there was no way in hell he was going to win on the scorecards. Not only because he, according to most people, got the benefit of ridiculous amounts of doubt in that first fight with Pacquiao, which incidentally I think another part of the reason why judges scored it for Bradley was because of how badly people thought that Marquez got robbed in the Pacquiao third fight, which was right before the Bradley fight. So, if anything, a lot of times what happens with fighters is once they're the beneficiary of a quote unquote robbery or a quote unquote close fight, a lot of times judges will start to look at them with more scrutiny in their next couple of fights. And incidentally, I think that's a big part of what happened with Pacquiao Bradley. But, getting past that, I think that would carry over with Bradley because Bradley would then be seen as a beneficiary of a decision that he quote unquote didn't deserve against Pacquiao, another decision that he quote unquote didn't deserve against Provodnikov, and so now facing Pacquiao again. These new judges, even though they didn't have anything to do with the former decisions, are now gonna quote unquote right the wrong by keeping a sharper eye on Bradley, and putting the onus on Bradley in order to really win these rounds clearly. Otherwise, they're gonna be favoring Pacquiao more so in the rounds. And it so happened that, Pacquiao won it clearly, probably more clearly than Bradley won the first one, but even still, I like this idea of a third fight. I don't like the idea of Pacquiao Crawford quite as much, only because Crawford hasn't quite achieved as much as Bradley has. Bradley's managed to he dominated at 140, moved up to 147, and still competed at a very high elite level. Crawford kind of dominated at 135. I mean, although he only fought a couple of really top-notch opponents, and then at 140 now he's fought a couple of pretty good opponents, but nobody necessarily great. Nobody, excuse me, on the level of a Devin Alexander or a Victor Posol or even shit an Amir Imam. Granados took care of him. But so I mean, he doesn't necessarily have the credentials and the achievements to back up what he shows in the eye test, whereas Bradley does. So I like a third fight between Bradley and Pacquiao. There's also rumors talking about Broner versus Pacquiao. I mean, I wouldn't mind that either, just by virtue of the spectacle of it. I understand, that would sell, so I get where that's coming from. But Pacquiao Bradley to me, I think is a good shout. I think it's a good fight. It's an interesting fight, not necessarily the most eye pleasing for the casuals necessarily. I mean, really depending on how Bradley fights, because if he whether he chooses the box or if he chooses the slug. Although he did look really good, being offensively defensive and defensively offensive against Brandon Rios in this last fight. So, I mean, the way he mixes it up is really good. He makes good fights, and I like the third fight. That's it.